you have to have this, that, and the, it's so, you know, I think you can forget about that. I think what we have to do is to go beyond that, and we have to try and get people connected. Well, after I left film school, I think the problems that I encountered, which were to do with my background, were more that people were looking, you know, whenever I went for a meeting, and people would want me to, would only consider me for projects which were somehow or other connected with South Asians, and which was a bit strange. It was almost as if they thought if a white person or a person of a different color to me stood in front of the camera, I was standing behind, there would be no image on the film. So it was really weird. But luckily for me, there were enough people who didn't have this narrow way of thinking, who gave me a chance, who saw my work that I had made at film school and so on, liked what they saw, and asked me to direct things for them.
Mar Vista Entertainment presents a modern-day love story for all time, starring Matthew Modine.
I hear you are enjoying the attention of our loveliest and most fascinating citizen.
It will take all her passion and all his courage.
Let's go!
No, I can't.
To find out where the real treasure lies.
What if we crash?
What if we never try?
Well, Opal was set in Patmos because it was written for Patmos. The monastery and the cave of St. John were an integral part of the story, so we had to shoot in Patmos. And we were very lucky because not only is it a magical island, but the monastery agreed to let us film there, which was wonderful, really.
And now,
Are you an archaeologist, Eric?
a man with a dream
To success in the discovery of St. John's Cup.
has arrived to search for an ancient treasure.
St. John's Cup?
I think there's a very real possibility.
What he's about to discover is the woman who will change his life forever.
How long will you stay here?
That depends.
There's a fact of life, which is that people are watching motion pictures in very different ways now. There are platforms available. People watch things on their cell phones. This is not something we have any control over. I've seen on an aircraft somebody watching a Cannes Palme d'Or winner's film, and in episodes, and also changing the framing of the shots because they're watching on a small device where it was originally intended for the big screen. Now, I can get very upset about this, but it's not going to help me. I just have to accept this is the new reality. And it brings both benefits as well as, you know, things that we would rather didn't happen. But the other fact of the matter was that cinema was not commissioning what I would call the more intelligent films in the same numbers that it once did. So it was getting harder and harder for filmmakers who wanted to make films which are called art house. I don't like that term, but they're called art house, to get those films made. But along came Netflix, Amazon Prime, and other platforms, and they're willing to make those kind of films. So we have examples most recently of a film like Roma, and even of Cold War, which were financed by those platforms. And I think it's great that those kind of films are still being, or still have a home. You'd find it difficult to meet directors who don't want to make movies. We want to make movies because we have a bigger canvas. We can do things in movies that TV doesn't necessarily allow, but I have to say the opposite is also the case. So yes, I love making films. I like to tell a self-contained story on a bigger canvas with all the sensibilities of the cinema that you can bring to it, all the tools that you can employ for that. Of course I do. But finally, what really makes the decision of what I want to direct depends on the story. And as long as the story is great, and even if it's for a cell phone, I'm happy to direct it.
So where is she?
Who?
Your wife?
Why do you think someone would want to be married to me?
I was gonna ask you to marry me.
What is this? Do you still want this marriage?
You touch me and it goes away.
Kinda, yeah.
Knows what?
She's the one thing in your whole life you've ever loved.
Brexit, along with a lot of other things that are happening around the globe, are some of the most depressing things I've ever come across, really. It almost, you know, I almost wish we lived in the days of the Cold War when I was much less pessimistic about the future. I mean, that's a silly comparison, but I think what I'm trying to say is anything that splits people, that makes people retreat into their own separate little caves, that's all I can call them. Yes, and anything that makes people constantly regard people who are even slightly different to them or think differently or have different opinions as the other and as the enemy, I think I just can't see how that can possibly be a positive thing. So I'm very depressed about Brexit. I'm very depressed about generally the rise of what's called populism, and it's happening across the globe. And I really hope that sooner rather than later this trend will be reversed. When I'm not in production, I teach. I run workshops both in Britain and also actually in Poland, and I've done it in other countries around the world. The reason I do it as much is because, you know, I benefited from the experience of people when I was starting in the business, and I want to pass that on. So I enjoy that. Of course, making films is the priority, but when I'm not making them, I really do enjoy teaching.
I'm a union member.
Okay, if you're hesitant of the challenges, don't go into the business, because you have to be very, very tough-skinned in this business. You're going to hear the word no a lot. So that's the first thing. But if you have passion, if you are willing to put in, you know, the work, the hard work it needs to really perfect your craft, to come up with great stories and do all that, you just have to keep going. The ones who succeed are the ones who don't give up, who keep going and who keep persuading things. Sooner or later, you will get there.